rise and shine. Let's get ready to take on the day. Activated Mornings on WEFM 99.9 is on now.
You know this song?
I don't remember it, but it's catchy.
Yeah, it's really catchy. That's why I asked if you know it, because it's not familiar to me, so now I have to go look for it. Anyhow.
Good morning, St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Yes.
The time is now 7:17, and it's time for Activated Mornings this morning. With you this morning is myself and, of course, Roleza.
Morning, everybody. How are y'all doing? Ari, how are you? I didn't talk to you yesterday. I don't think I will talk to you yesterday.
All right.
Yeah, all right. Just all right.
Yeah, just all right.
Why just all right?
Because it's Christmas and I ain't getting a Christmassy vibe. It's being negative stuff I see.
Yeah.
Lord, no, I dropped the camera.
Look what you did. All right. Yeah, and I know what you mean in terms of the lack of a Christmas vibe, but I don't know. Maybe it's one of those situations where, you know, people pick up pace coming on closer to the time. I mean, we're still in November. And unlike other countries, I suppose we haven't commercialized Christmas as much as yet, because some other countries start celebrating Christmas all in September. Like in Trinidad, Christmas trees would already be up in the malls and all of that. So
I was advocating for start the Christmas music since November 1st. Since November 1st, I was here parang and different.
So who say you come play it in your house? What happened to your house?
I want to play it on air. I want everybody else join me in Christmas chair.
All right, well, listen, we will see what happens from next year, right?
But this morning, unfortunately, we're going into a bit of not so good news. So we have
interesting news. Yeah.
We have an interesting story here where Hiltop Farms in Park Hill is being asked to move to make way for a parking lot and skills training center. So we have a classic case of...
You know, there's a song by John Mayers with that. They pay paradise to put up a parking lot. You know that song?
Nope.
Pay paradise. All right, never mind. I'll tell you the song after.
Yeah, so the story can be found on St. Vincent Times, which basically starts in a note to clients. Hiltop Farm stated that they received notification from the authorities that the private lands they lease are in the process of being acquired to make way for a parking lot and skills training center. And you know, that's a question I had. Are the lands that you own, that you paid for, can the government take these lands? And I remember either reading it somewhere, hearing somewhere that the lands you own aren't actually your lands and the government can take it when they feel.
Yeah, I think I need to get the proper term, but yes, if it's in cases of national development, land can be acquired by the government. You're supposed to be compensated for them. Yeah, but
that is wild to me. So you mean to tell me I pay? Anyways, according to the company, as farmers, they understand the importance of education and community development, but they also believe in creating a harmonic balance between education and agriculture, trying to join them. Both are critical in the well-being and growth of civilization. I'm reading a quote now. It says, "Our farm boasts diversity, high productivity, and plays a substantial role in the local food supply. The importance of food production and sustainability cannot be underestimated. We employ a careful examination of alternative solutions to mitigate the impact on agriculture activities." So again, we have a classic case of agriculture versus urbanization. Which is more important? Which deserves the land? Is it necessary to have a parking lot and skills training center that replaces a farm? And what would happen if we replace a lot of these agricultural, not in this case, but cultural spaces and definitely things that do not relate to urbanization? What happens if we remove all these lands in place of buildings and parking lots? What happens then? Would that take away from our Caribbean culture with it? What happens?
I think it's a funny balance that needs to be struck. Um, in terms of, because if we're talking about food security, providing for ourselves, being self-sufficient, especially where agriculture or food production is concerned, um, we have to sort of weigh the balance in terms of, and I suppose the question is, could another location be located? Is it that the community actually needs to have this skills training center and the parking lot? Um, was this put towards the persons within the Park Hill community in terms of, do they think that it is a must? It's a necessity? Is it that the maybe the grand scale, well, I'm not sure what size the community center is going to be. Is it a case where it needs to be, let's say, something big in terms of what may be proposed in terms of the drawing? So, it's all of these questions that we need to ask as well. As again, I said, there's a battle between agriculture, and what we're realizing is that in SVG, I think what we note is that there wasn't, well, back in the day, there wasn't any sort of national development plan in terms of how land is supposed to be utilized, right? So we tend to have agriculture intertwined or intermixed with residential property. And land space is going to become limited. We're going to see that in about 20 years, land space may just become limited in terms of prime spots. Maybe it's a case where we're going to be sending a lot of farmers, or the farming production would end up in the hills, in the mountainous areas. Is this going to be practical for persons in terms of the terrain, in terms of accessibility to their lands? It's a very funny question that we're asking. We also have to look at the question of the employment that's going to be affected in if Hilltop has to actually move, because they're already employing persons to work on the farm. What's going to happen to these workers on that particular farm? And there's a trickle effect, because remember, in farming, you sell your produce to stores, to supermarkets, to different vendors, etc. Right? What is going to happen to that supply if they're not able to provide for their customers as well? Are these businesses that patronize Hilltop Farms, how are they going to be affected if their quantity of supply is going to now decrease? So it's all of these questions that we need to ask. And as I said, it's a ticklish issue that we have to deal with. I, of course, never like to hear the fact that businesses, small business, medium-sized businesses are going to be affected in this particular way, because you have to recognize that people are trying. Sometimes in instances, we look at agriculture and we think that it's on the decline, although we see that there's a bit of a resurgence of it. And if there is a resurgence of it, shouldn't this be encouraged? Shouldn't this farm, let's say, be supported? Even in supporting to just maybe just leave it alone and find another location to put the community center and the parking lot.
But it's not the only issue over farmland. Say, there's another story on ANN that speaks about Chill Spot and the owner being asked to move his farms that's located in a residential area. So if I remember correctly, I don't know if I quoting correctly, but I'm pretty sure with the introduction of the legalization for medicinal purposes,
Cannabis.
farmers were given allowed to bid or buy plots of land, I think. And they were asked to move their lands. The guys were here for capture, I'm sure, and I cannot remember what it was exactly. But is it that they're now going to try to force farmers to move more towards the mountainsides and create the more flat or the areas closest to the villages? We're going to create more urban areas there and remove all the farms altogether, because I'm not sure if I agree with that.
You see, as I said, it goes back in the day when we did not necessarily have a holistic plan for the country in terms of development, right? Now, what I find interesting with the Chill Spot situation, I probably shouldn't say Chill Spot, the situation involving, I think it's Lance Oliver is his name. Now, from reading the article, and we're basing our well, I'm going to base my thoughts and our opinions on the article that was on, what was it? Is as well as
Yeah,
on
ANN.
ENN, right? Now, he stated, Mr. Oliver stated that the farm has been in existence for over 30 years, right? On the farm, there are pigs and there are chickens. I'm not sure if there's actual agricultural produce in terms of crops, right? Now, as far as I know, within a residential area, you cannot have farm in terms of like a pig farm or those type of farms, right? You cannot have those within a residential area. What is interesting with this particular story and why it is I find it a little bit difficult to have maybe, let's say, an opinion in favor of one or the other is the fact that he's been there for 30 years. Now, as years go by, you are going to see that certain areas are going to be more developed, right? So now there's a bit of a change in landscape, and I think it's the land is probably something like what 4 acres, if I'm remembering correctly. Um, you are going to have a change in landscape. So now it may just be a case where there are more persons moving into the area. So it's now more heavily concentrated to be a residential area. Now, the thing of it is that with 4 acres, that to me is going to give me the impression that you're not going to have a lot of neighbors within very close vicinity. And because of that, so I actually had to go to the comment section to see what persons were saying, and there is a little bit of a mixed response in terms of there are persons who say they're close or relatively close by who are not affected, whereas you have some who say that they are affected by it. So I mean, the thing of it is that it's not a case where Mr. Oliver has indicated that he doesn't want to move, but he's saying that in order to move, it's going to take a bit of time for him to do so. He needs to do the preparatory work with regards to that. One of the other things that I got from it is that even let's say if he relocates to another area that may possibly not be close enough to him, there is the issue of him not being able to, let's say, readily access the wherever it is that he's being relocated to, and the issue of predial larceny has come up for him before. So that was the thing. Back in the day, we had farms and residential areas within the same communities, so persons would have been able to keep a closer eye on their farms, on their produce, and on their livestock. But now, because you have persons moving into our maybe in a way, farmlands are being a bit more encroached for residential development. There is going to be that challenge and there is going to be that struggle.
Well, I guess we'll just wait and see. I hope I'll get to hear something from the Minister of Agriculture, something from the PM. He usually comments on everything. So hopefully we get some understanding of why. And I really hope this isn't one of those situations where what's good for the goose ain't good for the gander, because as we saw with Bigger Bigs, he was banned from doing certain things, but come to find out other people were allowed to do it. So I'm looking forward to hearing what are going to be the comments or the explanation for both of these instances.
Yeah, and we can recognize and we can't discount the fact that there's a bit of an undertone where persons are going to think that it may just be an issue of, let's say, victimization or him being targeted. It has been disclosed a few months ago that his wife may have an interest in running for politics, but she's on the NDP side. I'm not sure if that position has been maintained. There hasn't been any sort of announcement that's happened. So, it's when you see certain persons are being quote unquote targeted, or let's use the word affected, by government wanting to introduce certain measures, or maybe in this case, applying the law that's already on the books, you have to wonder if persons are being targeted in that regard. So we will just have to wait and see what happens here. But it's to me, it's a bit unfortunate, but I can understand it from a residential point of view. But as we say, if you're going to target one, you have to target all.
Yep.
So
well, the time is now 7:31, a couple seconds shy of 7:32. We're gonna break now, and we'll be back with traffic talk, commentary by Cian Marshall, and then 8:05 we'll be discussing the China pneumonia outbreak. So tune in, we'll be right back.
Quartz Optical presents